Sunday. Sundays are always precious and it's time with the family. It means a lot that you're taking an hour out of a Sunday to be here, and I hope it is worth your time. So what we're going to talk about.
We need that light there, it's a bit of a glare. Those two lights are needed or only these two lights?
Maybe we need those lights.
You need
The
those
lights on,
huh?
your face is a little brighter on the video.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, done.
Is it better?
So better for reading.
Okay. So what we're going to talk about is ancient grains in daily life. Why should we even talk about this subject? All of us are fairly familiar with what ancient grains are. They made a huge comeback. We've seen the government give a huge push to millets as such in the past year. They got the United Nations to announce 2023 as the International Year of the Millet. There's been a strong focus towards millets and traditional grains. And COVID sort of gave us a big push to watch what we're eating. So it's not that we're not familiar with this. What I'm trying to say today is how we can include this as part of our daily diet. Not just the occasional treat, not just as part of an extensive menu where there is about 5 or 10% of millets in the menu, but how do we incorporate this in our daily life in a way that it makes meaning for us, for our overall health, and for our family's health and immunity. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Why do we eat grains? Why should we even talk about grains? Why not talk about vegetables? There's so much to talk about in terms of safe food. The reason why we focus so much on grains is if we look at food overall, about 50 to 60% of our overall energy or calories that we take comes from grains. What is the main difference between grains and vegetables? Like if we feed a family of 4, we are going to take about a cup of rice, and then we are going to multiply it by 3 times water, right? So grain is such an important part of our history, our culture, because it has a major superpower. It swells, it's dry, we can store it, it's shelf stable for so long. We have a huge culture of storing paddy for many years together, and grain swells when we pour water and we cook it. It can feed a crowd, and entire civilizations have been built around grains. As soon as man settled down and started cultivating, grains were one of the first things that we tamed, which was essentially wild grass. We brought it in terms of rice and wheat and millets, and then we tamed rice and brought it for public consumption, and cities and entire civilizations were built around grains. That's why it's so important, and why we focus on traditional grains in particular is because the grains that we use today are very different from what we had earlier. They've seen a major revival, but we'll see why it makes sense to take what we call as ancient grains. What do we eat as grains today? Most of our diet is made up of primarily wheat and rice. So we've narrowed it down to 2 main varieties of rice. So what do we say when we say rice and wheat? We'll say rice for cooking, idli rice. So it's become 2, it's like Xerox became a word. So it's just like cooking rice became a word when there's so much to it, and not just one variety of rice, right? And we also have wheat. Wheat is just wheat. We don't even classify as between one and the other, and we sort of generalized. There are many advantages to this, of course, that we can streamline, standardize certain things, and essentially grow this in a much larger scale if it were standardized and commoditized. But there is a lot of value to grains that we've passed on from centuries, and we'll see what difference it makes to us. So this is what a rice kernel is made up of. What we see outside, the spine sort of thing that you see here, that's called the hull. We call it tavadu in Tamil, and that is largely taken away from the grain because we cannot digest it. It's taken off, and it's even as cattle fodder. We use it as manure and so many other uses. The next layer, this thin line that you see here, that's called the bran. That's where all the good stuff is. That's where all the vitamins are. That's where all the minerals are. And essentially what we do in modern processing is take the bran away. Why do we take the bran away? We've all heard of rice bran oil. Bran has oil, which means that if rice is left with the bran intact, it rancks it very fast. If one just takes off the bran and stores it in the shelf, it means that it's going to stay there for a year. Pests are not going to infect it. Longer shelf life. So we've come to a stage where we process the grain so much for shelf life that we lose out most of the essential goodness. And what we end up eating is this starchy portion called the endosperm. The embryo contains a lot of nutrients, we do get that, that's not taken away, but largely what we eat is the endosperm and the bran is taken. Whole grain versus refined grain. What we get commercially is refined grain. What's the difference? Whole grain has the bran intact. We've all heard of whole grain bread, whole grain wheat bread. We really have to go and check if they have the whole grain in there because it's most likely polished grain, which is like milled, and then they just give it to us as whole grain bread. So whole grain has the bran intact, refined grain doesn't have any of the bran intact, and the bran is also where a lot of the fiber is. We all hear so much about eating fiber, eating fiber. So what we end up doing is rice and grain, any grain that we eat, wheat or rice or millet or whatever it is such a large part of our diet. We just take the fiber out completely from that, and then we want to eat more vegetables and fruits, and which is great, but why take off something which is already present with all its goodness in the grain itself? So whole grain contains the endosperm, bran and the germ, and refined grains contain only the endosperm. That's the summary of this. Now, why should we eat with the bran? First of all, what happens when we digest the grain? It goes inside and breaks down into sugars, right? So when we have the grain with the bran and the fiber intact, it means that the sugars release much more slowly in the body. It's much better for our blood sugar levels. I feel very conscious talking with esteemed doctors in the audience, but ma'am, please correct me if I'm wrong.
She's a dentist, it's okay.
Yeah, but I mean, she is a medical professional.
She's a rice.
And, so
digestion starts from the mouth.
Yeah.
And that's why they give the rice.
So it helps in maintaining a steady blood sugar level rather than cause sharp spikes, which is all what we're obsessed about now, right? Blood sugar levels. Fiber helps the cholesterol lower, as well as it moves waste through the digestive tract, and generally fiber is great for gut health. We should all be eating more fiber. And most importantly, what we really don't appreciate that much, we all get the fiber part, we all get that it digests more slowly when it has the bran intact, but what we miss out on a lot is all the phytochemicals and the nutrients which are present in the bran layer. So what does the bran have? Anything that we see which is brown, we say it's higher on iron, right? You know, grapes and jaggery and dates and all of these things. So the hues in a grain or in any food are indication that it contains nutrients. So we have essential minerals such as magnesium, selenium, copper, iron, all of these essential minerals in the bran, and that strengthens the whole body. There are also a whole host of antioxidants that come with this, which we will see later on in the presentation. A few more advantages of eating whole grain with the bran. Higher dietary fibers, polyphenols. Polyphenols are some of the antioxidants that we get. It reduces the risk of cardiovascular diseases. Reducing fiber intake is one of the key things that contributes to body fat accumulation. None of this is my observation, these are all taken from studies. And whole grains enhance satiation, which means if we eat whole grains, we get fuller much faster. We don't have to keep eating so much grain, and it's a great prebiotic. We've all woken up to what prebiotics are, what we have to take before, as part of food so that the good bacteria develop, right? So prebiotics and gut microbes benefit a lot from eating a whole grain. History of grains in India. We've been eating rice and millet for centuries. It's a staple grain of Asia, not just India. We look across all Asian countries. Rice is the staple diet. Even noodles were made from rice. All Asian countries make rice noodles. Now we have more wheat noodles, but essentially it was rice. Now, what happened was, in the 1960s, we had a huge famine. Many of us are familiar with the story, where we had a famine. We had to feed people really fast, so we went to the International Rice Research Institute in Manila in the Philippines, and then we developed a bunch of hybrid rice varieties that can grow much faster. So the rice that we essentially use now grows in a period of 3 months. It comes out faster, it grows much quicker. The flip side to it is we have to flood the field with water. The rice that we traditionally had never needed so much water. Millets don't need so much water, but it was a need, it happened, and then that became our predominant grain as we moved along the years. Right now we have about 1,500 ancient grains which are brought back from farmers who held on to those seeds and were practicing for their own family consumption and so on. So this we already spoke about. What is important was millets were about 40% of our overall cultivation, and then that just gradually came down. Well, it's very ironic that millets were what we used to eat as staple grains earlier. Now it's become like niche food that we need to learn how to cook and all of these things. So we've essentially lost some of it. We're trying to bring it back. How different is traditional rice? Okay, here is where I'm going to plug my experience as a part-time farmer and tell you what the difference was that I observed. I had the opportunity around COVID time to partner with my friend who has a small piece of land near Tiruvadandai behind the Nitya Kalyan Perumal Koil. I joined my friend Satya. She was gracious enough to have me, and then we grew in her plot of land organic rice. She had already started with Poongar, and then I came in. We together, I mean, of course, we are novices as far as farming is concerned. We had a farmer who helped us, but we made sure that he followed traditional organic practices, and we grew Mapla Samba rice there. So Bharat and I, on August 15th, we went and planted the seeds, and we harvested around Pongal time, which is a whole 5 months for the rice to first grow and for it to come to harvest. And after we harvest it, in Tamil we call something, there's a term for the maturation of the grain. It's called irukku vekkirath, which is basically the rice stays inside the husk for a period of time and it's allowed to mature. So when we initially harvested the Mapla Samba, it was a pale yellow in color. When I just opened the grain, I was very excited. First time we are growing something. It was pale yellow in color, and after the maturation, it came out in this dark red color. So that's what the maturation allows for the grain to imbibe all the goodness from the husk and for it to develop the nutrients over a period of time. So compared to 3 months in which the rice that we have on our tables right now, it takes 3 months to grow. The rice we grew took 5 months just to grow, another 2 months for the rice to mature, and then we sent it to the mill, got it hand pounded and then took it back. So why this addresses one of the key questions: why is this so expensive when we get rice in a supermarket, what we eat for about anywhere between 50 to 70 rupees? Why does traditional rice cost us about 100 rupees? This is one of the main reasons. It takes almost twice the time for it to come out, and it takes a whole lot of care. And for the entire duration of the Mapla Samba, we watered the crop twice. We didn't water it at all. And you can imagine if this is behind, for those of you who don't who want a place where this is, you know, the water treatment plant in Nemali. Some of you might know the Nitya Kalyan Perumal Koil, but this is right behind that. It's that area. So it's practically the coastal area. So our traditional rice doesn't need too much water. It is both flood resistant, drought resistant. There are rice crops specific to Vedaranyam and other places by the coast, so it essentially can grow anywhere. Millets, rice, we don't need to flood it with so much of water. We don't need to depend on specific inputs, like we know how much of money farmers spend on all whatever they need to nourish the crop and so forth. So there is so much in terms of resource intensity that goes into growing the rice that we eat now. Traditional rice, from our own experience, doesn't need so much. The only thing you have to watch out for is pests, because when you're growing organic, there is constant vigilance that's required to make sure that there is no pest infestation. So what we did, we ground ginger and garlic at home, and then we took the extract and that was sprayed on as pesticide, and we used basin mixture to enrich the crop. So that's all that was used. So it's great for the soil, it's great for the farmer, it's great for us. It's a whole virtuous cycle. And that's why traditional rice really makes a difference, not just to the body but to the entire ecosystem. Okay, let's move on to the type of traditional rice. We'll come in a little bit to millets as well. We all speak a lot about millets, but traditional rice is also a huge treasure trove. Ancient texts in Siddha and other traditional medicine cite specific traditional rice from which extracts are taken and medicines are made. So we have a huge history of traditional rice, and that deserves equal importance as millets. And the other thing is, it's not as expensive as millets have become right now. So you go buy a kg of millet, it's about 150 rupees. while millets are nutritious, traditional rice is also equally nutritious. You get it for about 100 rupees. Not that it's a price thing, but just to show that it is accessible to us as well. So we have in traditional rice something called the long grain fragrant rice. There's a lineup of rice here. I'll take you through what they are. The one towards my left, these are black rice. We all know Karuppu Kavani. It's this small, long, black sort of rice. It's called forbidden rice. Why is it called forbidden rice? Because it was reserved for royalty at some point in time, and then it was grown in Burma, China, and all these countries, and then we got it largely through the Chettiars who came in from Burma, and they brought the rice, and now Kavani is a part of our culture as well. You also have something called the Karunguruvai. Karunguruvai, again cited in so many texts in Siddha and other traditional medicine. Karunguruvai is great for, it is used to treat any sort of skin ailments. It's also great for bone and joint health. So that's the dark variety. It's the Karunguruvai. It's called Karunguruvai because it's almost black. When you see, you'll see how it is. We also have not all traditional rice is red or black. We also have a huge variety of white rice. For those of us who say, it's a color and texture thing for me. I'm used to this for a certain period of time. There are enough number of white traditional rice for us to take. And so what we know most common is Jeeraga Samba. We've all used Jeeraga Samba for our biryani and other mixed rice and so forth. But there's also so many other rice varieties, mostly that end with some sort of a samba, even though something like a Mapla Samba is red rice. There's something called Ilipaipu Samba. Why is it called Ilipaipu Samba? When the grain is maturing, it grows like this and falls as it matures, and the smell is supposed to be that of Ilipaipu. It's a flower, and it gives out that scent when it's maturing. And you'll see when you see the grain, it has a slight green hint to it. Again, Ilipaipu Samba is great for bone and joints. My mother, who grapples with arthritis, I give that rice to her so that she can make noi kanji out of it and then have on a regular basis. It can be converted into anything we want: porridge, regular rice, and so forth. I also have in the exhibit here for you Garudan Samba, which is supposed to be great for eyesight. There is also today a new rice which I'm experimenting with now called Sembuli Samba. So there are so many white varieties of rice that we have. The red, we've all heard of Mapla Samba, and you might have also heard of Katyanam. I also have here Pungar, which is called the super rice for ladies, excellent for pregnant, lactating mothers, for girl children who would like to improve their menstrual health and so forth. In general, for all women, Pungar is an excellent rice. By the way, there is no gender restriction. We have been having Pungar as a family for many years, Mapla Samba as a family for many years. Mapla Samba is supposed to strengthen the nerve system, traditionally given to the groom after the wedding. But just that, while these have specific properties, there is no gender bias in any of this rice. We can all enjoy all of these different rice varieties for different things. We'll go on to how we can use them a little later. I'm just introducing the types. So this is as far as the types of traditional rice go. We spoke about red rice as well. In white rice you have Kichli Samba, Tanga Samba, Tuyamalli. For anyone who wants to change their everyday table rice into something which is almost similar to the table rice we're already using, something like a Tuyamalli, Sivan Samba, Kichli Samba, Tanga Samba, all of these, your family will not even know the difference. These are all much lower glycemic index than the rice that we're taking now. Try and get a slightly unpolished version. There are single polished varieties of the same rice that you get. Try and find those. It will be slightly off-white in color. But like they say, karan nalladhu, I say color nalladhu. So it's good to have a bit of color in our rice. Nutritional value. Why do we have to have this in the first place? There is a whole lot of nutritional benefits. Lower glycemic index releases blood much lower in the body. Excellent source of B vitamins, zinc, manganese, folic acid, which we already saw, and polyphenols, antioxidants, and they are rich in flavonoids. So these are taken from studies that have been done by some of the biggest research institutes in the country. I'll give those specific full text papers to you if you want later. So this is a study done on different types of rice: Mapla Samba, Atur Kichli Samba, Jeeraga Samba, Pungar, Kalmadiyan, Katyanam, Karuppu Kavani, Puli Vedichan, Sona Masuri, and Arudam Purve. Out of these, The white rices are Atur Khichdi Samba, Jeeraga Samba, Sona Masuri. Now you see here phenolic compounds, flavonoids and anthocyanins. All of these are essentially antioxidants. Phenolic compounds we find in roots and vegetables and many of the other vegetables that we take. That is also present in rice. Flavonoids, which we find a lot in green tea. We all have heard the story of how green tea is good because it's rich in flavonoids and has antioxidant properties and all of that, right? It's present in rice also, in the bran that we essentially take off. Anthocyanins, anything which you see is purple in color, a purple cabbage, ube, which is what we call purple sweet potato, which is also one of our traditional vegetables. All of these have anthocyanins. That is another group of antioxidants as well. You can see how, while this is a huge table, let me just point out a couple of things for you. You take something like a karpu kauni, go straight to the anthocyanins. Yeah. So for a karpu kauni, you see that the anthocyanin is about 75, and you see for the white rice, jeeraga samba, it's about 10. So essentially what the table says is color is good for you. So the more dark hued the rice is, the higher it is in terms of antioxidants. So let's not shy away from color. There are ways to address the texture issue, which we'll come to a little later. This is just to show how rich they are and to show that while we have traditional white rice as well, red rice is slightly better in terms of nutrition. This is too busy, but let me just give you the summary of what it is. So this is a list of all the antioxidants. Forgive me for the small font. I'll send this as a separate picture on the group later. I'll just read it out for you. All the antioxidant names: tocopherol, squalene, stigmarol, if I'm not wrong. And a whole lot of antioxidants which are good. So all this shows the properties of these particular. I'll just read it off here because I can't read there as well. Anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antiviral, cancer preventive, antibacterial, anti-rheumatic. So all of these different compounds, each of them have a different nutrition benefit for the body. I am no doctor, I have no medical background, but this is just to take from studies and show you that it has a whole lot of compounds that are good for us in multiple ways. Okay. So essentially in the body, it gives you antibacterial activity, anti-tumor activity, anti-inflammatory activity, antioxidant activity as well. So those are just some scientific studies to show you that we all have this thing of, maybe it's only what our grandmothers told us, right, or great grandmothers. I don't think any of our grandmothers told us about rice. Probably their mother before them would have used some of these. It is not just what is handed out in terms of word of mouth. It's not just what we hear from farmers and the community who've been using this rice. It's also backed by science. There are so many scientific studies available that you can look up to see the benefits of this rice. Next, moving on to millets. What is also called Shri Anna, popularized by the government so much. What are the types of millets? Millets largely grouped into two categories. One is the major millet, the other is the minor millet. Major millets are the ones that we've heard of the most. Bajra, Jawar, Kambu, Cholam, Ragi, all of these are major millets. Minor millets, the way to simplify this and think is, minor millets are anything that you can use like a rice substitute. It is similar in appearance, it's much smaller grain.
Please continue.
Yeah. So the minor millets are anything that we can use as rice substitutes. Essentially it looks like this, very rice-like in texture. We have different types of minor millets as well here. Some of the minor millets are, I'll say their names in Tamil as well as English. Barnyard millet is called Kudraivali, Kodo millet is called Varagid, Thinai is called foxtail millet, and Samai is little millet. So all of these are rice similar. Anyone who wants to move to millet but as a rice substitute can use these minor millets. Major millets we've already been using. Bajra was used so much in roti before wheat came in a big way. So was ragi. So all of these come under the major millet categories. We'll go on to how we can use them as well. These also have a whole host of benefits. All of these are from the Indian Institute of Millet Research in Hyderabad. I went there and spent some time with them just to understand what they're doing. And these are all listed in their website. So it's basically anti-acidic, gluten-free, millets detoxify the body, helps prevent type 2 diabetes, reduce blood pressure and so forth. So it's just a list that says it's very good for you. Nutritional millets. It's nice to think of millets as what does this do for me, right? So all the women here, since we are majority here, we all struggle with calcium, right? How do we take more calcium? So many theories about milk and that is milk really good for you? Where is your milk coming from? And do we have lactose intolerance and all of these talks? Ragi is a very simple source for those who have their doubts about milk, for who milk doesn't agree with so much, and especially for elders if milk doesn't digest so well. Ragi is such a rich source of calcium. We have about 350 milligrams of calcium in ragi every 100 grams of ragi, compared to about 112 milligrams in about 100 ml of milk. So it's about thrice the amount of calcium when compared to milk. Ragi, when taken in any format, ragi flour, ragi roti, ragi, whatever way in which we incorporate, it's rich in calcium. For all of us who are struggling with, I want more iron in my diet, what do we immediately rush to? Dates syrup, iron supplements, something like a moringa leaf, which we don't really get so much of, and all of these. While all of these are great, we can also get them from our grains. Kambal, which is bajra, is a rich source of iron. That's what you see in this table. You see here in comparison, pearl millet is bajra. It has for every 100 grams about 17 milligrams of iron. You see finger millet, we just spoke about how it has 350 milligrams of calcium. Finger millet is ragi, calcium every 100 milligrams. And like this, each of these have are rich in specific nutrients. Kambal is traditionally cooling for the body. It's for anyone who is struggling with acidity and so forth. It's nice to have a kambu porridge, kambu pool. So each of these have specific uses. Kambu pool is very popular in the summer. It's a traditional summer coolant. Ragi a little more towards Adi time, but typically around this time when the seasons are changing, Adi pool is quite popular. Ragi pool is popular more this time of the year. So there are different nutritional values in different millets. Now we all live in like different climatic conditions inside the room and outside the room and so forth. So each of us can see what suits us best and adopt those particular millets. Okay, some frequently asked questions. I don't like the texture. Can I digest millets? How long can I store it? What about pests? The moment we see some small poochie inside, we just throw up the whole thing. We follow the sell by date, which the Americans follow. Will children eat it? All of these are questions which I hope to address. One, how to prep grains. We all have established that it's good for us. Right? So how do we actually use this in our daily life? One, check if it's polished, semi-polished, unpolished. It's okay to start with polished if that's where you're comfortable. It's always the first step to take, and then you can always move on. So what do I say it's okay to take polished? Take something like a Sivan Samba rice or a Khichdi Samba rice, which we mostly get in its almost polished format, but it's still traditional rice. Get used to that. Then we can move on to other varieties which are semi-polished and unpolished. The main thing with traditional grains is we have to wash it really, really well with water. At least 5 times. The water will not run clear like our usual rice where the water stays absolutely clear after we run it 2-3 times in the water. It will be almost clear. We have to wash it really well. And all traditional grains have to be soaked for 5 to 6 hours minimum. There are those who feel that the moment they eat millets, it doesn't digest well, or there's some sort of a reaction that they're getting. All of this is because the millet has not softened well. So we all think, let me give a small example. How many times is an idli cooked? So technically we think we steam it for 15 minutes, it's cooked once, right? The idli starts, yes, precisely. Cooking starts with soaking. So when we did our Mapla Samba rice, we had some nellu from the previous year. All we did was the farmer put it in a sack and hung it in the well in the farm. And in a couple of days it had sprouted. Essentially when we're soaking grain, we are sprouting it. I mean, not the grain that we use here is not capable of sprouting, so it doesn't sprout. But essentially, it wakes up the nutrients inside it. Soak is the first cook. Then we grind the idli batter, right? So when we slowly grind it, that's the second form of cooking. Then we let it ferment, which is the third cook that happens, where we are allowing natural bacteria to break down the batter even more. Fourth and final stage is the steaming process. So essentially, it's cooked 4 times before it comes to us, which is why anyone hesitant to try traditional grains, fermenting it and having it is a great way to start, to check if we are really compatible, because all of this digestion is already done before we even eat the grain. Advantages of a cold soak. So most of us have small grinders at home. We grind it in a mixie, and the moment you take like a soaked kambu and grind it in a mixie, what happens?
Heat.
Yes, absolutely. So it gets heated up, which means that the grain starts cooking in the mixie, ever so slightly. That's not what we want. So for those of us who are pressed for time, who still want to do this, we can soak overnight and leave it in the fridge. So the idea is to get the grain inside the mixie cold, so it counteracts some of the heat that comes from the mixie or the grinder. These are all practical. Is it how it was done traditionally? No. But we live in a modern world with all modern amenities. We have to incorporate this in a way that it suits us. Earlier we had stone grinders. We had the tiruvai, in which we had somebody to sit and grind the whole thing. Now we don't have the stone grinders or the chakkis or the tiruvais. So let's be practical. Let's try and see what we can do with that. So these are some of the ways in which we can break down rice. How to prep millets? I call this the millet spa. So rice, traditional rice, we can do all of these washing and soaking and all of this. Has anyone observed when they cook millets that it sort of gives a weird smell? That's probably because it's a little old at that particular point in time. Doesn't mean we have to throw it off. In traditional grains, it's very important that we buy and keep it fresh. If we know that we're not going to use it that frequent till we are used to it, best to buy a quarter kg, half kg, store it in the fridge, use it. Once we are used to it, buy larger quantities. It doesn't make any sense to buy 2 kilos of millet or 2 kilos of rice, because we know that the shelf life is much shorter. We are doing ourselves a favor by knowing how much we are going to cook and buying limited quantities when we are starting, when we are used to it in terms of everyday cooking, then we can buy a lot more. How to cook millets? So how do we feel after a spa? We feel like we are born again, right? So someone like, when we have that self-care and someone really helps us go through that spa, or just spending time with our mother, and our mother is feeding us or like oiling our hair and all of this. So we feel like we're born again, feel refreshed. I feel that our grains also deserve the same treatment, because ultimately food is what makes up our body as well. So how do we do the spa? First, let them have a nice soak, wash them thoroughly, have a nice soak for 5-6 hours at least, then drain the water. Does not need sunlight to drain. Put on your fan, have an open table, spread a cloth and just dry the millet out. That way what happens is, all the millets actually have 7 layers inside them. So whatever residual smell or whatever it is that you're feeling, once we washed it well, soaked it well, drained it, and then we dried it out, it's like it's born again. It's called the millet spa. So then you can actually use the millet in any way we want. So we can grind it into a rava and use it to make like a millet rava upma, or we can use it to make pongal or khichdi, all of these different things. We can grind it to fine flour and make like an akki roti or rice roti sort of a thing out of it. So the main thing is to treat the millet well. That itself will get rid of all the stuff that we don't like, which is the smell is not great, doesn't smell fresh. Doesn't mean that we have to throw it out, unless it is unbearable, which means that your grain has really gone bad because it's been sitting for a long time. Check the date in which it is packed when you're buying from your organic store or wherever it is that you're getting it from. So this is how we prepare millets. How to cook millets? It's, like I said, it's okay. When you see all the millets that you see here are unpolished millets. By the way, I checked in the Millet Research Institute what constitutes polished, how much polishing is actual polishing. There are no set standards in the country. There is some polishing which is done. There are no standards set as to how much is actually fully polished millet or semi-polished millet and all that. But just look out to see that it's not completely white. But if completely white is what you're starting with in any millet, so you get a kodo millet and you find that it's completely white, it's okay. Start with it, and then we can always move on to a semi-polished or an unpolished millet. So cooking methods, there are a whole host of videos as to how we can cook them, but once we've soaked them for 5-6 hours, they are ready to cook. If you're only comfortable with the pressure cooker, that's fine too to start with. But ideally, the open pot method is best, where we just like boil the rice in the grain and then close the lid, let it steam in like the lowest flame possible, and then after about 15-20 minutes, you open, fluff it up, then it's done. There are so many ways. I'm not going into those because it's readily available. You can use a mud pot, you can use a bronze pot. All of these retain heat really well, which is why our traditional pots and pans are so useful in cooking something which is harder to cook than rice. Actually, it's not. It's just something that we have to get used to. Okay, stage 1 for any grain, millet or traditional rice. Stage 1 for those who are starting, break it down fully. Batters are a great way to go. If you're using batters, go for the major millets and not so much the minor millets. Use the minor millets for rice substitute. If you're making batters, go with a ragi or a kambu, and all of these can be made as batters. And the minor millets can be used as rice substitute, but break it down fully is a great way to start. What are the ways in which we can break it down? Dry flour. Make sure that the dry flour is something which is fresh. Wet flour, fermented idli, dosa, appam and so forth. And wet flour over dry flour to start with. If for someone who's very, very skeptical, I don't know if this is going to suit me, grind it fresh and try it first. Then you can always, because the dry flour we have no control over when it was milled, how long it's been sitting and so forth. Why wet flour is better? The dry flour, most likely it has not been washed or soaked very well, because they have to pack it and send it. They might do a basic cleaning, but if you're grinding wet batter, you know how much you washed it, you know how much it's soaked, and then it's grinding, so it helps digest a little more easy. This is not to scare anyone against dry flour. Dry flour is great. For those who are very, very skeptical, start with wet flour. Next, you're comfortable with flour in its finest form. Next is grind it coarse or pound it. So pounding is essentially poha or aval that we have, right? So what happens when we make aval is the grain is cooked and then pressed as flakes. So it's cooked already. We know that. That's why aval can be eaten as is. That's a great way to start, because we know that it's already been cooked. We get excellent millet flakes. Even on big baskets it's available. We get excellent traditional rice flakes. So replace your poha with something like a mapla samba flake. Mapla samba poha can be used as a substitute to your regular poha. And you get different grades of thickness in traditional rice also these days. Just soak it a little longer. Any sort of rava, even in all our delivery platforms now we get millet rava. So anyone who wants to, like, I'm fine with flour, I want to move on to the next stage, try the rava. Try to make a khichdi where you like cook it very well and it becomes very soft. Then adai. Adai is essentially coarse ground grains which we mix lentils with and then have it. It's a very nutritious meal to have, and you have it along with an avial and so forth. These are some of the ways we can use it coarse ground. Okay, by the way, all the pictures here are my own pictures. Just shameless way of plugging in, saying that I made all this. So.
You presented so well, actually.
Thank you. So this is an adai. Okay, we'll come to the topic of whether we can or cannot mix millets. That's a question for another day. I'm not entering that. This is just one step before all of that, for those who are trying to enter. So this is cholam and some kodo millet, and then different pulses all ground together, and we make adai with multiple pulses and grains also. That's because we've used it for quite a while. We are quite used to it. For those who are starting, start with one single millet and then take it forward. This is where the grind coarse or pound thing happens. This is mapla samba aval, and this is arishi upma but made with millet rava. So these are ways in which we can use it. And then once we are comfortable with all this, then we can move on to using as whole grain, which is for those who want to try something different. Instead of the fully red rice, there are enough rice varieties which are half red and half white. There are so many rice varieties. If you go to a store, you can find out even a mapla samba. If you get like a semi-polished mapla samba, it's going to be half white, half red in color. You can start with that as a rice replacement. So this is mapla samba rice used in a meal. This is, I think, millet used in a meal. This is Vaikunta rice used in a meal. And this is millet salad. Millet cooked, fluffed, with a little bit of oil or ghee, then it becomes all separate. And then we cut a whole lot of vegetables and fruits and then make a nice salad. So these are ways in which we can use it as whole grain. Meal planning ideas. These are all millet and traditional grain-based breakfasts. Can make Samay makes excellent ven pongal. Mapla samba aval upma, kudrawali khichdi, varaga adai. Even in wheat, we have the paigambari wheat and the emmer wheat, which are all ancient forms of wheat. I've tried those wheat types. It's excellent. It absorbs more water. It gives a much more reddish hue, and it has much lower levels of gluten than the regular wheat. For those who are gluten sensitive, it's great to start with those type of rice. And it has all those phytochemicals and nutrients that we spoke about in rice that's present in traditional wheat varieties also. So something like instead of regular wheat paratha, we can go for an emmer wheat paratha, kambu kool, ragi flour, murungakeera adai. For anyone who's suffering with iron deficiency, want to pump in some iron and calcium, this is like a great iron and calcium filled breakfast that we can have. And then the rava can be used to make rava dosa and so forth. Lunch, we can replace rice with samai, khichdi sambar. Samai is a millet, little millet, khichdi sambar, tanga sambar, tuyamali. These are all very similar to table rice that we already use. So we can replace lunch rice with that. Something like a ragi mudde, which is basically ragi pool made into balls and had with something like a palak dal, again very, very nutritious. We can make biryani, which we already, I think many of us do, with jeera sambar. Use tuyamali and other rice for making mixed rice like tomato rice. And kapli wheat is emmer wheat again, you can use that to make roti. Dinner, we want to keep it very light. For those of us trying traditional rice for the first time, let's please try it for breakfast or for lunch when our digestion capability is at its highest. It is proven scientific fact and traditional knowledge that our digestion is the highest when the sun is up and not so much after the sun is down. So those of us trying it first time, let's not have it for dinner. Once our bodies are used to it, then we can move on to having it at dinner. But if you're having it at dinner, something like a sevai, which you are also going to taste today, is excellent because it's again ground, steamed and pressed into its finest form. So it's a very light way in which you can have. Break traditional rice into noi, or noi is what we call broken rice. Rice which is broken down. Anyone who feels intimidated with size, we can wash it, dry the rice, and then give a quick pulse in the mixie. It becomes like rava. Then we can use it to make a good porridge, which is kanji, or we can use that as a rice replacement. We are, not used to having the whole rice as rice replacement. A broken rice addresses the texture issue for us. And have something like millet in a vegetable soup, a light soup, which is both filling and nutritious for something like a dinner. Then, once we cross all of this and come to a stage where we are comfortable with traditional rice, we can actually explore how to use traditional knowledge to alleviate some of the issues that we might have or our family might have, not just to alleviate issues, but to prevent these things from happening. I was telling you how for my mother, we use Irpeppu Samba. For someone who wants to alleviate joint pain, arthritis, or prevent it from coming, something like Karunguruve, Karunguruve and Irpeppu Samba are both here. These are both great, cited traditionally to keep our bones and joints healthy and to relieve pain. For someone with IBS, we have so many people who say, I have problem digesting food and my gut is not at its greatest and I want something very, very simple to digest. Jeeraga Samba is very, very light on the body. So we can use Jeeraga Samba as a replacement to traditional rice. Use something like a kambu, but in its broken down form, where we can make a kambu porridge. Kambu is bajra. Have a porridge or something which makes it very light and easy to eat. Kambu porridge is also fermented, which again makes it great for conditions like IBS. Something like a tuyamali rice, again almost similar to the table rice that we have, but lower glycemic index and much more nutritious for the body. Pregnant women, lactating mothers, children, children's health, definitely have pongar as part of your diet. For the nervous system and its strengthening, Mapla Samba, overall wellness, antioxidants and other flavonoids and so forth. Use black rice and Katianam. There are so many studies that Katianam is one of the highest in terms of antioxidant content for the body. All of these are when we are used to rice and when we want to explore much more. There are so many ways in which we can use traditional rice and millets for improving our everyday health. So just some pictures for you. This is Mapla Samba aval, which is ground mixed with jaggery and coconut, and these are laddus made out of that. It stays well in the fridge for like 4-5 days, even outside for a couple of days. This I think is Karanguruvai idli. That is millet pongal. Resolution is not. So this is interesting. It is elada, which has a jackfruit filling, but the outside shell is made of ponga rice. You see how beautifully pink it is. It's much more pink on my laptop, not so much here. And this is Murungakira Ragi Ada. Again, an excellent, very balanced meal that you can have. And this is some Murugan idli style podi idli, but made traditional rice idli, but slathered with a whole lot of podi. So all of this is not just healthy. We can make it as indulgent as we want. It's not just, we associate this mostly with sad eating, right? So it's not that. It's actually very indulgent, very tasty. The rice and the millets have a nice nutty flavor. We can actually enjoy them so much once we are used to them, and it's not something that we have to say, I eat this for health reasons. It's just eating. It's not something exclusive. We've been doing this for centuries. We're just bringing it back. So unless we use this in our everyday life, it's not really going to make a significant impact. If you have it like once a week or something, it doesn't really accrue so much to the body. End of the day, we are what we eat. So let's eat real food. I'll just close with one concluding remark. One of my favorite scientists, he says how we should focus on the shrinking of morbidity. It's not, when I say morbidity, it's all sorts of ailments that we have. It's not that our ancestors didn't get it, it's just that they got it for a short period of time and they didn't struggle so much with it for so many years, like unfortunately our generation is seeing, right? So all of this helps us have a healthy life, for morbidity to be a very small part of our life and not something that we struggle with on a daily basis. So let's eat real food, because all of this is towards prevention, it's not towards cure. If we start incorporating daily grains, traditional grains and millets in our daily diet, it contributes more to prevention, especially for children, building immunity. It's easier to change children. It's harder. My son has been eating all of this right from the day we started, which is about 10-12 years back, but it took me far more time to get my mother on board than it did to get my son on board. Children adopt very, very easily. So please, let's not assume that our children will not eat all of this. Made the right way, they will enjoy it, and we don't have to say, eat it, it's good for you. You can just tell them, eat it because it tastes nice. So yeah, I'll conclude with that. Sorry if I overshot my time. We can take questions, and then you can, if you have any, and then you can also have a look at all the grains. It's organized per minor millet, major millet, red rice, white rice, black rice. And then we can move on to some of the stuff which I've brought to show you that hopefully you find it okay to the palate. Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
So Sangeeta, shelf life for millets you were saying is like, it's not like how we do it in rice, is it?
Shelf life will be shorter because millets, we don't know at what condition we are buying. We don't know when you're buying from wherever it is that you're buying. Say suppose you order on Amazon, it's all pre-packaged and it's kept there, right? And even if it's on a supermarket shelf, we don't know when it was packaged. We can definitely look at it, but the shelf life is definitely much shorter because it will start smelling a little rancid if it's a little old. So we have to make sure that the packaging date is there, or if we are going to some place like a farmer's cooperative, like something I buy regularly from the organic farmers market in Adyar, where it's all kept open, where we can go and actually see. And we can just have a quick whiff and check if it's fresh. The store people are always happy to share with us when it came through and so forth. But to answer your question, it's like much shorter than what rice's shelf life is. I can't put a specific finger to.
Maybe 2-3 months is also late, you say.
Maybe, I'm not quite sure, because it depends on what conditions the millets were in, where they kept open, where they kept stored. We don't know. Yeah.
If you keep it for 1 or 2
Do you
months.
store it in the fridge, Sangeeta?
We use it.
Outside.
We keep everything outside because we use it on a regular basis, and I make sure that at a time, if I'm buying rice, I buy, if I'm buying Karanguruvai for my idli dosa needs for the next 2-3 months, then I buy about 4-5 kilos. Because for idli I also mix, because we grind it for like 3-4 days together, I do a mix of Karanguruvai with a little bit of, say, Garudan Samba, something like that, a white rice. So I'll use it in combination I know how much I need for the next 2 months maximum. Rice I buy for 2 to 3 months. Millets for about a month. I don't buy more than a kg of millet at a time because I also have 2-3 millets for different things. I'll have thinai for something, making something like a chakra pongal. I'll have little millet for making all my pongal. Pongal is a staple in our house. We make pongal mostly with millet. So it depends on what I'm using when. But never more than 1 kg in 1 millet at one point in time. Unless, so there are times when I buy from an organic farmer and it's coming from straight from the farmer from Chengalpattu or the outskirts. That time I do buy 5-6 kilos and keep it. But that will be something like a ragi or a kambu where I know that the ragi is excellent because it stays so fresh for so long. If it actually ages, the color will go slightly more red, but nothing will happen to it. It doesn't get infected with pests and so forth. Kambu ragi are much more easier to store, much less vulnerable to pests. So we can store those for much longer. But all the little millet, all the minor millets are much more prone to rancidity. Sorry,
This
Miss?
rice when you cook, you
Yes.
said you have 2 options. One is a cooker or one is a open
Yes,
stuff.
open pan.
Now I cook it in the open one.
Right.
But I drain the water.
That
But you
is.
didn't say that. You said till it becomes fluffy.
Ah.
Adhe tannila idadamari. So is
the
it
ideal thing
meaningless
is-
to straight drain the water?
What you're doing is the ideal thing, ma'am. Not
Draining
yet.
the water?
It's the Vadikira method that we've
Vadikira
already been using. There are starch draining cookers also which are available in the market right now. You get what is called the starch drainer cooker. That is also available at the moment. It's there in Prestige and it's called the Ultra Diet Cooker or something. So we have one of those models at home. There's a perforated bottom. You put the rice and pour water inside it, and you just lift it up. All the starch stays at the bottom, and the rice comes.
I did a course actually. Yeah, they did a course on the types of cooking.
Okay.
But in cooker, when we cook, like the barn that loses its.
Yes. The structural integrity is lost when we cook in the cooker.
So open.
Yeah. Either millet open pot is.
Yeah.
We have a huge history of doing the Vadikira method, the rice draining method. Culturally, that's what we do. Yeah. For those who are pressed for time, let's just wash it really well. If we want to use a cooker, we can use a diet cooker. But your method is very good.
But you have to drain the water
Ideally.
because we cook millet in the steam pot
Okay.
and it's quite.
So if you wash it, the only thing is, ma'am, it reduces the starch is what comes out when we drain it.
Yeah.
So that means that the glycemic index is slightly lower when we use this method. So if your sugar levels are fine and you find it much more comfortable, the way I approach it is much rather do something, even if it's slightly less optimal, if not the perfect method to do it, as long as we're incorporating grains, it's much better than not doing it. So we can always move towards ideal case scenario as we get more used to. So it's okay. You can always try. For millet, you can do open pot. For rice, we can drain.
In the variety of rice, Lana, are the idlis as fluffy and yes?
You're going to taste today. You're going to taste today. Hopefully, you like it.
Sometimes
Same
they
as
use
a
traditional rice, right? So the next day morning, they smell it. He smells
Everything is as same as only the color. But you should eat it hot.
Traditional rice only smells different, yes.
Like is that like some hours extra or something we should over soak if I feel like
For idli batter,
if I soak it for more than 5 hours or more.
right.
So the smell is a little different in the morning. Is that normal?
So when you're soaking for idli dosa and you're grinding in your grinder, keep it in the fridge.
Oh.
Because when you're keeping it outside for 5-6 hours and then grinding in the grinder will cause some heat, which means that the rice will start cooking.
Yeah.
A stone grinder is ideal. The other thing is because it has higher fiber and it has all those colors and other things, it turns sour faster.
Yeah.
Red rice turns sour faster. Any colored rice turns sour faster when it has more fiber and more bran and so forth. So it's best to cold soak it and then grind it. So it won't smell different if we grind it cold. And if in the grinding process, the grain shouldn't heat at all. When we feel the batter or the flour, it should not feel even warm. If it's warm, it means that it started cooking, which means it will ferment much faster. So we want it to heat only when you keep it on the stove. Till then, it should do its thing and ferment and all that, but without any heat. That's why we keep it in place, I mean, we live in a very temperate environment, so we just keep it in a cool place and just ferment on its own.
For how many days we can use that batter?
Which-
Because these days people are telling that don't even use that white rice batter, it is not more than 3 days or
Yeah,
4 days.
so ideally
But
3 days.
what we do is we use it for 5 days, 6 days. Like that is what happening in every home. But when it comes to traditional
Right.
rice batter, for
Right.
how long we can use it?
We can use it for 3 days.
3 days.
3 days. It depends on, so it varies from fridge to fridge also. If your fridge is something that, like if your fridge temperature is about 2-3 degrees or so, 4 days is comfortable at all. But we never know, we don't go and measure all these things, neither is there a way to pinpoint and say what temperature it is. Ideally, idli the first couple of days, the next day dosa. If you have some batter left over the 4th day, mix it and make some kul paniyaram or something, so it doesn't, but ideally better to make smaller batches that last for 3 days. We typically use it for 3 days. The first 2 days will be idli and the second day will be, if we really have batter left over on the 4th day, make some kul paniyaram or something.
Actually, nowadays awareness is really good. For example, if we take, everybody knows that we have to take dates,
Right.
and we are giving to children.
Yes.
We are also taking it, but we believe that taking 3 or 4 dates is enough. That is what we can't take more than that, and we are not taking efforts. But what I came to know that it is not sufficient for our body. Okay, that is what I heard. And similarly, when it comes to, see, you were telling about that ragi kanji, right? So to put it in layman terms, because every day it's not easy thing to measure and eat. Suppose say I'm taking ragi kanji daily, like how many spoons I should mix it up and make it as a kanji?
Okay, so one, it depends completely on, so even if it's for iron, for me, my iron, since I was a child, has always been low. All of this has actually helped my iron stay at much better levels. It depends, completely different from person to person, depends on where we've been brought up, what our body constitution is and so forth. It's completely subjective. But a quick way to do this is eat as much, so if we are eating kanji in the morning, for example, enough quantity is something that lasts us till lunchtime without us going very hungry. So that is a good quantity to have. And also along with the kanji, we mix it with some vegetables and so forth, and have a togel or something with the kanji and have it as a full meal. Then it should last for as a meal, or if you're having this along with another meal, then it's totally dependent on how much we are taking. So because our nutrition comes from multiple sources, even protein, right? Vegetarians get so much rap for not having enough protein in the diet. Every single food item that we eat has protein. Even rice has protein, just at its much smaller levels.
It's not sufficient.
It's not sufficient, but again, there are studies that say that having there are cases in which there are excessive protein also. So it's hugely subjective. I'm definitely not someone who can comment on how much to take in a particular thing, because I don't think I'm qualified for it. But from my experience, what I've seen is something that lasts us up to the next meal is a sufficient quantity to have. And something like a ragi will fill us up much faster, so we don't have to eat as much. So if we're having like 2 to 3 dosas for breakfast, something like a ragi idli or a ragi dosa, we can eat like 1.5, 2, and then it still fills up our body, because it's like very dense in terms of nutrition and fiber. So it lasts us much more than what we would in terms of the polished rice that we have every day.
What is Kaikuttal Rishi? Where does it fall? I mean, the market is flooded with Kaikuttal
Yes,
rice. What
yes,
is that?
yes.
I mean,
So-
it's hand pound, understood.
Yes.
But what is the basic grain in that?
Right. So hand pounding is when the husk is removed just by the pounding part of it. The machine, what it does is there are like 2 sharp things like this through which the grain passes, and then the layers come off and so forth. So Kaikuttal retains more of the nutrients because the grains are removed off the husk with minimal intervention. It makes it much more expensive. I've seen ladies pound for hours and then finally it comes. That's what makes it more expensive. Hand pound, if we can get it, it's definitely much better for us in terms of overall nutrition, because the grain has a full nutrient content intact in hand pound.
That's understood, Sangeeta.
Ah.
But what is the grain that they are selling? Right? The rice. See, now
Oh.
you're saying so many varieties of
Understood,
rice.
understood.
But when you buy Kaikuttal rice, it's just Kaikuttal rice.
Understood, understood.
You don't know which rice are you buying.
I just got your question. So They should ideally say what rice it is. It is because
They
any
should.
rice can be hand pound.
Yeah.
People and stores have made it hand pound rice as a thing, as it were like a rice
That's
variety.
a selling point, you know, the kai kurma. But we don't know which rice it is.
They should tell us what rice it is that you're hand pounding. Any rice can be hand pounded. Even our
Mostly it is Sona Masoor.
Sona Masoor.
Sangeeta,
Ah.
name the 5 millets which anyone should start and will be good for, easy to incorporate in because there is a list. I don't want to bunch up all the varieties. Just 5 which will be easy to bring on the table on a regular food, and what should be the best, will be the best recipe to make with it.
okay. So I'll give you 3 to start with. So I'll give you 1 in the minor millet category and 2 in the major millet category. Minor millet is where you can use it as a rice substitute. Something like a samai.
Sangeeta, just hold on. All these names are swimming in my head. So I may have to either write it or when I go home I won't remember the thing.
And Sangeeta, just to add to
You
what
let
you
him
said,
know
it
the.
was a very good question what you asked, Arun. If you
What
can
I
tell us what to have
suggest,
for breakfast,
Sangeeta
I mean
can
for
add
breakfast,
it in the
lunch,
group.
and
So
for
that
night
she
dinner.
could test whatever. Instead of taking notes
Sure,
or
sure.
recording,
Sure.
we want you to put it,
Yes. I'll do
let
that.
her put it in the group so that it will be with us.
Not
Yeah,
only.
So your question was
Ladies
what to have
know.
when, right, for breakfast?
Yeah, like, for example, like she said, like she asked for 5 and then you said top 3, right? So what I'm asking is if you could just give us a simple meal plan for breakfast, lunch and dinner. I know you would show us the thing,
Yes.
but you would just tell us this. For beginners.
Okay, I'll.
Chandra, who will cook? You or Shamini?
No,
Shami is not there, no? She'll be going to
Mother will cook.
No, no, there are enough ways in which we can do it quite fast. It's as easy as cooking rice if we just process and keep it over the weekend and so forth. I'll first come to your question, Charu. So, one, start with samai. It's called samai in Hindi, little millet. It's like the simplest millet. It's available everywhere. It's not difficult to get. It's called samai. In English, it's called little millet. In Hindi, it's called sama. I don't know what it's called in other languages.
And
But
what
it's-
recipe should be made?
Okay, so if you're starting with samai, do the millet spa first, which is basically wash it, soak it, do all of these things. Start first by making like a simple curd rice or a khichdi. So these are simple ways in which, why I'm saying curd rice is it's very forgiving, khichdi also very forgiving. You can cook it to mush, it will still forgive you. Right? So it's very easy, we can just say koranja tair sadam or something. So you don't have to worry about. Sorry?
Also,
Absolutely, khichdi pongal, both.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes,
So,
so all or
which one? Okay, samai. Same 5-6 hours. Same 5-6. So let me give you a quick thing too. If you want to make pongal, rinse it well in the night, wash it till the water is almost clear, at least 5 times. So one tip for washing, as soon as you pour the water, it's going to become very gunky, right? It's going to be full of dirt. Leave it for 5 minutes. And then squish it with the hand because it releases all the starch. Or use like a whisk or something and just like whip the grain so that all the starch comes out as much as possible. Let it sit for 5 minutes. Then drain the water. It will save you at least 2-3 rinses. Otherwise you have to keep rinse, repeat. It just becomes a big chore and it's a good arm workout for those who are interested in doing that. But soak for a few minutes, wash it off and then repeat it for 2-3 more minutes. And then let the water be almost clear. If you can get it fully clear, very good. And then soak it for at least 5 to 6 hours. If you're cooking it in the morning, just keep it outside. If you want to make something like first let's finish khichdi and pongal. Just keep it outside. Wash it, keep it outside. Morning, you will find that it's very fresh. You can taste, like take 1 grain and taste it. You will find it fresh when you smell it. There won't be any bad smell in it, which you can identify right up front when you're washing itself. You can realize whether it's like old or new or whatever. Then cook it. If you're not comfortable with the open pot method and all that, just use a regular cooker. Make a good khichdi or a pongal. So that's a great breakfast, much more filling than a regular pongal. It's adaptable to whatever style, North Indian, South Indian, it can go any which way we want because, yes ma'am?
The soaking is for efficient cooking or does it add any other nutrient value to it?
So, let me just get the name for you.
But
There
I'm
is-
cooking it, Sangeeta, I make khichdi, I make pongal, I make vada, everything directly, and it hasn't I mean, I just iniki khichdi, nikalapura very pongal. So just I add and I cook in my cooker and it's delicious. I have not done any soaking so far. So I just wondered whether it is for efficiency of cooking and cooker, the khichdi it's in the cooker. So I just cook it in a jiffy it is cooked.
Right.
So am I buying the wrong grain or is it because
This is millets, ma'am. You're saying for
all
millets?
the millets.
Ah.
I add initially I did half millet, half rice to begin with,
Understood.
to get used to the idea.
Great place to start.
And since we are seniors, I thought, digestion shouldn't go topsy-turvy.
Right.
So this is about last 5 years. And slowly dispensed with the rice and I don't need the millet and everyone loves it.
Right.
But no such preparation, no cumbersome, no chore, just wash, cook and I'm ready. So if it is okay or is it bad?
I wouldn't call it bad, ma'am. Why it hasn't had any sort of adverse effect is because your digestion system is very good. You're able to digest it. There are lots of people for whom it doesn't digest. But if you're
Then
still
soaking is required, is it?
you can wash and soak it at least for 2-3 hours. At least. It's still, even if your body accepts non-soaked millet, let us still soak it because soaking is also something that we traditionally do to make sure that one, it cooks faster definitely. It also aids in digestion.
Excellent.
So even if you are comfortable, I heavily recommend soaking.
Soaking.
Yes. So one is Samay Charu, to answer your question. Second is for lunch. I am trying to club sir's question also into it. So ragi, get sprouted ragi flour because it's a better place to start than regular ragi flour. Have a sprouted ragi flour and make nachni roti, ragi roti for lunch. The way to make ragi roti, I'm sure, I don't have to teach anyone here, but is to pour nice hot water so that it becomes a little pliable, add salt and then make roti and you can have it. Or have like if you get ragi flakes. The paisam that you have today is made from ragi flakes, ragi poha. You get enough poha everywhere these days. Get ragi poha, wash it, and then you can make a quick stir fry with but it will go into mush, so you have to be very careful with it. But ragi poha is a great way to start as well. Ragi flour, all of us know how to use it. If you get ragi rava, you can make like a upma out of it. Ragi rava makes good upma, so you can mix vegetables and some onion and all that and make a good upma. So these are ways. Seve also is available. One word of caution on the seve is we see packets, right, called ragi seve in the market, and we see think that it's millet. Please read the label because millet. Today you will see seve. I struggled so much to figure out how to make millet seve because millets, if it's 100% millet, it is extremely starchy. It will not have the bounce. You see this regular anil sevia and all of them, right? Please read the packet because very few variants are 100% millet. It's actually about 60% wheat and about 40% millet. It's not, I have nothing against wheat. Just that it shouldn't be sold to us as ragi when it's majority not ragi. I find that very deceiving. Much rather say wheat noodles or wheat seve with some ragi in it. I'm okay. So if you're comfortable with it, it's still okay. It's better than eating, has some ragi in it. But check, it's not 100% noodles. And for those who are having gluten sensitivity and all of that, they buy that and they think it's ragi seve without looking at the packet. It becomes very misleading. So that's one thing. But if you're comfortable with it, yes, seve works also. Right? Because it's very convenient. It's dry, it's stays in the fridge for so long. Then to give you the last millet, use bajra, just kambu. Again, I'm giving you one which is huge, very rich in calcium, one is very rich in iron. Again, kambu is very cooling for the body, bajra is very cooling for the body. Bajra makes excellent roti. Actually, if you cook bajra very well and make it into a nice salad, it tastes excellent. So mix vegetables into it.
The whole grain. The
Whole-
whole millet.
Yes.
Bajre ki khichdi is very
Yes,
it's
bajra
eaten
ki
a
khichdi,
lot
yeah.
in North.
Yeah, that also. So these three I would recommend, because one, only the little millet you will have to take a little caution in storing it. The other two will just stay. You don't have to worry about expiry and all of that. It will stay fresh for a reasonable amount of time. So these three are great to start with. Just one more thing, something extremely underrated is thinai. It's called foxtail millet. My party used to say, Nangala and the Kalkala Adrisam, they never made it with rice. My party never made it with rice. They always made it thinai. Thinai, if you look at it, you'll see this grain. I think even from here you can see how yellow it is. This has something called carotenoids. Carotenoids are the precursors of vitamin A, which go into the body and then become vitamin A and so forth. So it's so yellow in color, very, very good for the body, rich in carotenoids. This also makes excellent sweet pongal, kara pongal, makes excellent, I mean, Adarsam is like, even for the most seasoned cook, I'm sure ma'am will agree with me, Adarsam is a very tricky thing. We don't have to make complicated things, we can make simple everyday things with thinai also. So, extremely underrated. If you want to go for a fourth millet, please. Absolutely. Thinai kolkattai. Yes, thinai payasam. Thenum thinai mavum is the food of the people in the hills. It's what was offered to Lord Muruga and so forth. So it has huge traditional significance. We've been using it for centuries. Again, thinai I feel is very easy to cook, very nutritious, but super underrated. We hardly use it at all. So next time you want to make pongal, try thinai pongal. It makes a good kara pongal. As you can make upma kolkattai, you can even break it down and make upma. And thinai is also very, very versatile. If you want, get thinai flour, mix it with water, add some rava or something, and then make a nice dosa. So, so many possibilities. We just break it down into stage 1, stage 2, stage 3.
Use idli, rice. We can use all this millet also to make.
Yes. We can use it as rice also. Can be used as a rice actually.
Is there any place you can recommend where you get smaller quantities instead of 1 kilo?
Definitely go to Organic Farmers Market. It's in Adyar, Indira Nagar, 28th Cross Street. Organic Farmers Market, if you type on Google, it immediately takes you to the Adyar one. There's one in Anna Nagar, there are 3-4 branches. Reason why I like them, they get straight from the farmers. It's all kept in. So please carry your patrams and your bags, because you have to, they don't give you plastic. I mean, if you're going that side and still want to drop in, please drop in. They will give it to you in paper bags. They will wrap it and give it in 1 kilo, 2 kilo amounts. But if you want to buy larger quantities, ideally, I take my own bags. I go with my took and all for oil. Side story, you get the sesame oil there, nallanai there. You will not like nallanai anywhere else. Yes.
Actually, I have to go and
Yes,
my
yes.
son. So
Yeah.
I have only 2 questions. So you gave the top 3 millets.
Yes.
So now, can you tell top 3 traditional rice varieties which is very close to the white rice, because we got used to the white rice
Yes.
for so many years together.
Yes.
So as you said, let's start with something.
Yes.
To begin with.
Absolutely.
So can you mention those top 3? That is my first question.
Yes.
My second question, so as you said, Thenum Thilaimam, it has a mention in our own literature right from the Sangam period. So if it has that much nutritional value, how it got vanished somewhere in the middle? And also, of course, ragi is still there, it is very much known, we are using, but when it comes to millets, there is no trace. All of a sudden, it has, there is a wave for millets. Is it something business oriented really, or really it has a, because this is what coming in, all of a sudden there is an olive oil wave, again coconut oil. So every season, there is some reason, there is some wave. So anything we need to doubt these days. So on that point of view, so how these millets vanish and how it's coming back?
Okay. I'll answer your first question first. You can start with Tuyamalli, Sivan Samba, Tanga Samba, Kichli Samba. I'm giving you 4. All of these are commonly available rice varieties. You can go to Organic Farmers. Kichli Samba, Tanga Samba, Tuyamalli, and Sivan Samba. All of these are in Kichli Samba. You will get a Atur Kichli Samba or an Arcot Kichli Samba. Both 2 regions that are famous for Kichli Samba. Either is okay. Both are the same. Tanga Samba. So try and get the semi-polished version if you can. Sivan Samba usually comes polished. You won't even feel the difference between Ponni and Sivan Samba. Try and move to the unpolished once you're comfortable. It's over a period of time, say a month, couple of months. And to answer your second question, I think, from whatever little I've read, I'm no expert on the topic as to why this happened, but 1960s when the whole thing happened, we got into this short grain rice which was faster to grow, and we actually, I've heard elders give me stories of how wheat used to come from America in ships because we had a huge famine and people had no clue how to cook wheat. And then slowly people, I've heard stories of how people in Kerala looked at wheat and were like, what is this, what do I do with it? So then we learned how to break wheat and make samba and all of this, because the south part never knew wheat at all. So it's a function of different things that happened to us at different points in time. That time the government also had the primary responsibility of keeping us alive. So not pointing fingers at anyone, for different reason. Also because these have such shorter shelf life, we found it far more convenient. See, initially we got this white obsession, I think, white bread,
White
milk,
sugar.
everything white is exclusive. Actually, idli used to be what was called paniyaram earlier. Idli was eaten Diwali, Pongals, auspicious occasions was when idli was made. It was called palagara, not paniyara, sorry. It was called palagara. Okay, it was made on special occasions. Then rice just flooded the market, and then idli dosa became a daily staple. And then the rest of the stuff went in. So we used to have cool in the morning, and things like this were typical breakfast that we had in the morning. Porridge was our usual breakfast. But when one thing became, yes sir. So when I think the economics changed, white rice became cheaper, the more it was grown and sent to us, and then slowly the other things started fading out, and this came more into focus.
See, now the trend is like white rice has become a sin. People there's some way keep coming, right? So it's really bothering people actually.
Yeah, there's nothing against white rice, just that we have white rice here also. So it's just that we're trying to move on to traditional rice.
So this padedi we have sometimes. Morning I have padedi. You can do the same thing with these.
Yes. I heard a farmer once tell me, Kartiyanam rice, if you store it, if you make payar sadam with it, for 4 days it doesn't spoil. I haven't tried it though. Yes sir.
You mentioned briefly about bamboo rice.
Yeah, okay, I don't know. Okay.
What do you do with it?
Bamboo rice, I've honestly never tried, sir.
Right.
One, I find it prohibitively expensive. I'm sure it comes with a whole host of nutrition benefits and all that. Just that I've never tried it because I find it very, very expensive, very exclusive. So I have not tried it so far. Because I've not tried it, I'm not commenting on it.
Okay. You have not mentioned cholam.
Cholam, I forgot. Yes, my
Okay.
mistake. I have it here actually.
Okay.
Cholam makes excellent idli dosa. Cholam makes excellent idli dosa. Same way that we make kambu kool, we can actually make kool with cholam also. It tastes divine if you mix it with some more and Kuripaniyam. Yes. Excellent. Yes. Cholam makes excellent Kuripaniyam also. I actually have cholam here, but I forgot to mention. Cholam is part of the major millets.
Regularly we can.
I forgot in my.
Right.
Yes. Time's up. Yes. Thank you so much.
Very splendid session indeed. So now, since she says all that what she said, spa millet and all, so we are feeling very healthy, and with the luxurious method of benefits of millet, I think you're all going to shift over to millet, and we are going to be very
We
strong
also
and
want
healthy.
to have one more session.
We'll have
Sure,
with
sure.
the
We'll have
recipes.
Sure.
Cooking session.
She'll
Yes.
make a video, she'll do the cooking
Maybe
at
after
home,
15 days
so we
we'll have
will
one
know
more.
what
Sure,
millet
sure,
she's
ma'am.
using.
Anytime, happy to.
So you will know what millet to use for what.
Yes.
Yeah?
Because this
Okay?
one hour
Okay,
is
now
not
you
enough.
can feel the grains, then you please have a taste of everything and then stay for housing. We'll have one quick round of housing. There are some winners here today. Yeah? Cash prizes.
Chandra is the winner.